without knowing where you're going, you won't rise above your current challenges. You see, something I learned many years ago was the importance of having a vision. Except the issue that I faced was that there was a lot of pressure around getting the vision right, being crystal clear, and ensuring that I had every fine, minute detail worked out. But the challenge is, because there was so much pressure around having a crystal clear vision, I wasn't taking any action. So I want to help you develop more clarity as to what it is that's important about a vision and what isn't, to ensure that you have the clarity of where you want to go, but you actually start working towards getting there. So let's get into it. Now, straight off the bat, this is really important. Vision inspires action. You don't do anything without having a vision for it in your mind first. And it always starts in the mind. That's the fascinating thing about visions. Now, for most people, they live their lives unconscious of their vision. See, everyone has a vision. The difference is some people have an unconscious vision that's kind of reactionary, and then there are people who are consciously aware of their vision and they're actively working towards it. Now, this is true all the way down to you needing to go to the toilet to pee. It starts with a vision. I know this sounds wild, but bear with me for a second. There's a trigger in your mind where you have a vision of relieving your bladder. It starts in the mind, and then you follow through with action. So you start with this vision of, I would like to experience relief of my bladder. And then you usually envision what that looks like for you. You know how you pee, you know how to do it. So you just get up and you go and get it done. You go and take action. And you experience the outcome of the benefit of taking that action because you followed through with the vision that you had. Now, that's a definition of a reactionary vision because you're reacting to the sensation that your bladder is full. Your bladder expands, it's starting to fill to a certain level. Your nervous system sends signals to you saying, hey, this is starting to expand a little bit beyond our comfort. And that creates a vision in your mind that's reactionary that you then move towards. And so you then go and take action and you get to experience the outcome. You get to experience the benefit of that outcome. Everyone is living their lives with a vision triggering the outcome. Now, it becomes a question of how do we go from being reactionary, for example, if you're somebody who has a vision for a romantic life or a personal life that they're trying to create for themselves, you might be reactionary, which is, I don't want any douchebags in my life. I don't want people that treat me like crap, that don't respect me, that use me, that talk down to me, that are condescending, treat me like I'm stupid. And so that's a reactionary thing because you're saying what you don't want, and it's usually based on some past pain or a wound that you're wrestling with. Whereas if you're being proactive, you're declaring what you would love. I'd love to have a partner who respects me, who appreciates what I do, who wants to collaborate with me in life, who wants to be a partner in life and create and co-create with me, on the journey that I'm on. That's a proactionary life as opposed to reactionary life. So you start to create a vision where you're actually inspired by what it is that you want to create for yourself by being proactive as opposed to being reactive. People do the same with their careers or their business or even their finances. I want to have all the money in the world. I want to be the wealthiest person that all the people around me know. And typically that comes from a reaction of being broke at some point in their life or seeing their parents struggle. And here's the issue with reactionary visions, is that they usually end up creating more pain. You might achieve the outcome, and in some cases a lot of people do, but the challenge with that is you end up creating more pain that's a side effect of the journey and the path that you're going on. Because ironically, what a lot of people try to do is they try to heal a wound by fulfilling a vision. That's not the purpose of a vision. The purpose of a vision is not to heal your wounds. Healing your wounds is the point. Like, go and heal the wound. Go do the work that resolves the pain from wherever it originates. My preference for you is go heal the wound and then go and create a vision for yourself and go and work towards that from a place of inspiration and being proactive as opposed to being reactionary to some kind of past wound you've experienced. So in the example of moving towards a world where you're trying to create some kind of financial abundance for yourself, you want to ask why and where that's coming from. Because if that's coming from a wounded place, you then want to ask yourself, what's the more empowered version of this vision that I can create? If you want to create a portfolio of investment properties, which I'd kind of recommend against, but if, let's say that's something you want to do, the challenge with that is you want to ask yourself, well, why? Why do I want to create that? Well, because I saw that in my life, I didn't have enough money. My parents didn't have enough money. And I learned that the way to build a lot of money was to build a portfolio of investment properties. That's reactionary based on the sense of poverty that you felt. Heal the wound of what it felt to be poor. Heal the wound of what it felt to be broke. Heal those emotional wounds. And then suddenly you take the limitation off creating a vision of a portfolio of properties to then choosing to build wealth. And maybe there's multiple streams of income in the wealth that you build. And then it starts to unpack a deeper sense of purpose in the wealth. So I know portfolio managers or people who have significant property portfolios worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And for them, it's not about building more money because they've got plenty of it. For them, and it was to begin with, it was about providing housing. They wanted to be able to provide affordable housing in places where people didn't necessarily have access to it. So this developer hasn't gone and built in all the wealthy suburbs of that particular city. They've gone and built where there's great opportunity, where they see a lot of population expansion, and they see an opportunity to provide a lot of housing to a lot of people at a reasonable rate. So this property developer builds huge amounts of property, continues to own them, and rents them out at a fair market price without constantly pushing the rates up and making people's lives harder. As a result, he's built significant wealth in his life. Several $100 million worth. Now, that's not coming from a place of being wounded. That's coming from a place of wanting to provide value to a lot of people. The same is true if you're trying to build an inspiring vision for your business. What's typical for a lot of entrepreneurs, I've worked with many founding entrepreneurs, is that they're usually starting a business for themselves because they're trying to solve some kind of personal problem. To change their living situation, to build a lot of money, to make sure that they've got the financial freedom to leave a relationship. I've seen this a few times as well. And so they're coming from a wounded place. And then inevitably, when they start working with me, we start to redirect and reshape the vision that they're inspired by to be one that's more oriented towards serving the people that they're providing a service or product to, and what that's about and what that means. Because then it starts getting them out of focusing on themselves and starts focusing on other people and being useful to other people and valuable to other people. And that's where things really start to take off in terms of inspiration, and the business usually grows and expands from there because now they are thinking of something that's beyond themselves because they're not coming from a wounded place. So again, there's this subtle difference from being reactionary as opposed to proactionary, not a real word, but you go from being reactive to proactive. That's really important. That's super important. Because then when you start to show up with a completely different level of energy. So in essence, we're not trying to avoid and run away from something with the vision that we're creating. We want to create something that we're drawn towards, that we're called towards. It doesn't require force. We don't have to push away from something to get there. It inspires, it invokes something within us that draws us towards it, that we start walking towards. And you've had things like that in your life, things that you've been curious about, little omens from life, positive omens, but omens that sort of signal, they're like a little flame in the forest that draws you in down this path that eventually leads you to something that's really inspiring and energizing and intriguing for you. That's the point of a vision. It draws you down a path that you're genuinely aligned to. And here's the other really important bit when it comes to creating a vision for yourself and digging deep within yourself for that vision, is it doesn't have to be crystal clear right now. You're living a life that evolves. It changes, it grows as you do. It's a path. You don't have 100% clarity as to what you're going to experience on your path before you take the step down that path. You don't know exactly what the weather's going to be like. You don't know what obstacles there are going to be. You don't know if there are road closures, trees that have fallen down, storms, if the roads have actually changed since the map was drawn. Like, the map is not the territory itself. It's just a map. It gives you an idea. But you've still got to walk the land. You've got to walk down that path and discover things down that path that maybe you didn't think were actually going to be there. And so the beauty of having a vision, the reality is you only need enough of a vision to have an idea of the direction you want to go. And then you start orienting your action towards that. Start taking steps towards that. And by taking steps towards that vision, you start to get more clarity as you go. You start to see more things. You start to explore more. You start to get new bits of data, new bits of information that inform the next steps that you take and the further down the path you go. And sometimes you might find yourself halfway down that path and decide to completely redirect, which is also okay. Because you realize you're getting on your way there and you're like, actually, I don't think this is right for me. I don't think this is really what I want for myself. And that's something I've personally experienced. When I started consciously creating a vision for myself, it must have been 12 or 13 years ago, when I first sat down and started working on what's my vision for my business and my life, I created all these details. It was quite elaborate. And I worked on it for a bit. I was quite proud of it. It felt quite refined. And it felt like what I wanted at that point in my life. Now, a lot has changed since then. So much has changed since then. I'm a father. I've had a different level of success to what I thought I would, both in negative ways and positive ways. Things took longer than I expected to, and then things went really well in ways that I didn't expect after that. And so it wasn't a linear path, which is the irony. We usually expect things to be quite linear. In reality, they're not. And so over the years, when I stop and reflect on the original vision and the idea that I had, and I go back to it to refine it, I've found that when I look at it now, it's 2025 now, I look at it now, I'm in a completely different area of my life, a completely different chapter of my life. I'm a father. I've helped incredible people from a vast amount of different walks of life that I didn't expect when I initially created my vision. And I've experienced a lot of different insight. I've also experienced a lot of loss, loved ones dying, where I live has changed. Like, there's been so many changes to my life that's informed what I now value as opposed to what I valued back then. So when I look back at it, I don't want the same things that my self that was 14, 15 years younger from today wanted. I want very different things. I'm aligned with very different things. There are things that I cared about back then that I don't think are important at all now. And there are things back then that I didn't consider that are actually incredibly important to me today. And that's been the result of having the vision and then walking down the path and getting that information through walking down the path. Which leads me to my next point. Your vision is dynamic. It's not something fixed. What I see is really common for people, especially when I'm working with somebody in consult, is when we start to talk about what their vision is, there's a lot of hesitation and apprehension about getting clear about what they'd love to create for themselves. And it turns out the thing that they're resisting is being really clear because they're worried that whatever they decide, they're married to for the rest of their life, when in truth, they're not. And I have to share this with people. It's not whatever you decide now is it. It's not some life sentence that you've got to live with. It's far from it. What you're actually navigating is working out what it is you want today and then letting that unfold, letting that refine, letting you change your vision as you get more information, as you enter different chapters of your life. And then you will take things out that don't relate or don't resonate with you anymore, and you will add things in that you didn't consider because you didn't know at that time. It's dynamic. It changes with you as you do. So when you're working on what it is that inspires you, what it is that you'd love to work towards, don't focus on making sure it's crystal clear now. You're not married to it. You're allowed to change it. You're allowed to use new information or new experiences to inform what it is you do and don't focus on things that you eliminate, things that you introduce. Because you are dynamic, you change. Today, who you are today is not the same person you were 5 or 10 years ago. The same is going to be true 5 and 10 years from now. Especially if you hang out with me long enough, there's going to be a lot of change that occurs because I'll be giving you a lot of different reframes that doesn't allow you to subscribe to your old way of thinking. So then where do you start when you're working on trying to create a vision for yourself? If you've never done vision boarding or writing out a vision at all, where do you start? For me, the simplest way to start is I write at the top of a page, I'd love to, ... And then I start writing out things that I would love to be, things that I would love to have, things that I would love to do in different areas of my life. What would I love to be, do, and have in my business, in my finances, in my personal relationships, in my relationships with my family, with my health, and my physical well-being. And I run through all the different areas of my life and I list out different things that I would love to be, do, and have. And it doesn't have to be crystal clear. Sometimes it's as simple as, I'd love to have a loving, respectful, and inspiring partner, which is something that I'm fortunate enough to have in my life. I'd love to start a family. You can write as many children as you want. It doesn't matter. Just don't attach yourself to the number. Just write down all the different things that you'd love to have. I'd love to travel to 20 different countries. And if there are specific countries, write them all out. Or cities, write those out. If there are experiences that you know you would love to have at some point in your life, write those out. And you start to write out all the things that you'd love to create for yourself. And notice that I'm saying things that you'd love to create for yourself, not things that you're trying to avoid. That's a big distinction. Because if you keep focusing on the things you don't want, firstly, that's a sign that you're coming from a wounded place. And secondly, you're more likely to create the things that you're focusing on. So if you're writing out the things you don't want, you keep focusing on the things that you don't want, you're going to keep creating those things. Whereas if you start focusing on creating the things you do want, while it may not happen overnight, it probably won't. But the more you focus on it, the more you start to guide your actions towards the things, the habits, and the behaviors that actually create that outcome for yourself. So if you'd love to be a guest on 10 different podcasts over the next 10 years, I know that seems relatively small for some of you and relatively big for others of you. Whatever that number is, for example, you want to ask yourself, like, what are the actions that I need to take towards that? Why is that something I'd love to create? Because it helps you get clarity as to what the underlying motivator is, what the inspiration is behind it. For me, being guested on a podcast is about being able to share the message that I have with other people and get that out to more people that I can't do on my own. So by working with other podcasters, that helps me expand my reach into more people's lives. So whatever it is, list it all out. Go as long as you want. And then if you start to dry out of ideas, that's okay. You can come back to it and work on it each week and expand that list. And then you want to be able to distill it all down and get some clarity, maybe work them out into different areas of your life. And you'll be able to distill, you'll have overlaps, you'll have things that are like, I want to travel a lot, I want to see a lot of different places. And I also want to have a family that I can travel with. And so you'll see that travel might come up a lot, for example, and that's fine. But it may just be a matter of you choosing that you want to explore the world. And that's really as simple as it is. That's a vision. You choosing to explore the world is enough of a vision. Some people have that vision. Some people have that inspiration. Other people don't particularly care about traveling. It's a nice idea and maybe they'll do it someday, but it's not something they genuinely focus on that inspires them. Neither is better or worse. Some people would prefer to just work on developing and growing a family more than traveling. That's the most important thing to them. And that's okay. And then you might find that that changes for you over time. Family becomes more important in one chapter. As you enter another chapter, suddenly traveling the world and exploring the world becomes more important to you. Whichever one it is, it's fine. There's no right or wrong. It's about alignment. What's the thing that you're inspired by? What's the vision that you want to pursue for yourself? Because then you can keep coming back to it. Whenever you start to feel flat, whenever you come up against an obstacle, whenever you come up against a challenge or a difficulty, you can refer back to your vision. What was the point of it? Why were you doing this in the first place? because it all starts with a vision. Going back to the bathroom analogy of needing to pee, it's almost like you go from your office and you're walking to the bathroom, and on your way to the bathroom, someone interrupts you with a challenge or a meltdown they're having. Or you get a phone call from somebody or text from somebody that completely disrupts what you were doing in that moment. And it's a major issue. In that moment, you come back to your vision of like, why was I up? Why was I walking in the first place? What's the why? Oh, that's right. I need to pee. I had a vision of emptying my bladder. So whenever you face an obstacle or an obstruction or something that's getting in your way, you ask yourself, is my vision more important than this obstacle? If you need to pee and that's more important than dealing with that text, that phone call, or somebody trying to interrupt you to ask you what you're going to have for lunch, or if you want to catch up with them, you can just say, hey, yeah, pause, whatever. Like you can just say, let me just come back to you. This is more important right now. You get back to the why, I need to go and pee, you go and pee, you come back, and then you can deal with whatever the circumstance is. Or you can just say to somebody like, that's not important to me right now. It's not something I'm focusing on because I've got this that's more important. I need to pee. That bathroom, like I have singularity of focus. I'm getting to that bathroom. Otherwise, I'm going to wet my pants. I know it seems like a weird analogy for me to use when I'm talking about a really serious topic, but I need to make it lighthearted because sometimes we overcomplicate the envisioning process. It's literally something that starts in your mind and then you follow through with action, and we can keep it really simple that way. So this ultimately comes down to what's in your mind that you'd love to create. Are you creating from a place of being in a state of reaction, or are you being proactive? Are you trying to avoid, or are you feeling called towards? And then keep it really simple. Get it all out of your head, write it all down, share it with ChatGPT if you like, and ChatGPT can help you refine it, change some of the language, maybe align the language with you more. So it doesn't sound like this really big, fluffy lines and statements that don't really hit home for you and doesn't really resonate with your heart. And then the most important step, this is the follow-up, that if you don't, like you get all the other aspects right, if you don't get this next bit done, nothing will happen. You want to ask yourself, what's the one thing that I can do repetitively that will get me closer and closer towards fulfilling that vision? That's it. And then go and start taking action on that one thing. It's really that simple. And you'll find that it's probably something really small that's manageable that you can do every day. If you stick with it and you do it every day, you're more likely to arrive wherever you're trying to get to at fulfilling that vision than most people will. Because the issue that most people face is a lack of consistent effort. So if you put consistent effort in on something that's repetitive, that you can do daily, the smallest of steps, you'll be surprised how far you get. And you'll be surprised how in a short amount of time, you'll stop and reflect and realize how close you are to fulfilling it if you haven't already fulfilled it. So on that note, my hope is that I've given you some food for thought. I've encouraged you to start taking action on reviewing what you would love to envision for yourself. Start working on that. Get it down on paper, type it out, whatever your thing is, and then start taking action towards it. Because I know you deserve to go and create that for yourself, just as much as I deserve it for myself and anyone else that I know. And I'd love for you to be able to work on that over the years, so then your future self gets to look back at you in 2025 with a deep sense of gratitude that you did the work, because you then went and created this life that your future self gets to benefit from. So go take action, go start working on your vision, and if you need to, go pee once you finish watching this. All right, that's it from me. I'm Giorgio. Thank you for being here. See you in the next episode. Bye.